Good evening to one and all connected. Today I will continue the class that was started earlier for class 8 for Java lessons. If you recall, last day I told about the language. In fact, I started you know last day I started telling about the working of human brain. In brief, I told you, and I told you to make a brain working, we need instructions. The method, I mainly emphasized last day about method, that any work you have to do, then there is a certain method of doing the work, and that method is interpreted in a language. As computer is an electronic model to help us in doing our work. Then for computer also there is the need of instructions written in specific language. I also pointed out last day that computer is an assembly of switches, and in brief I also told you that why it is called a digital machine. Why it is called a digital machine, that I also pointed out the use of binary numbers, that the states of the switches are 2 on and off, and for a particular on and off there is certain function associated, and that pattern can be interpreted by binary numbers. For example, suppose a binary sequence 101101 is written. This means that for a set of switches, first is said to be 1, second is off, third is on, fourth is on, fifth is off, and again sixth is on. 1 is representing on and 0 is representing off. I also gave last day about the example of the TV remote control, and I told you to observe also using mobile phone, that in the back of or by the mobile phone camera, if you will see the LED of the TV's remote control, then you will see that LED flashes in a specific pattern. For each function you will drive on the remote control, there is a different fashion of flashing the remote control LED that you can clearly observe through mobile camera. So that flashing pattern is again analogous to switching pattern, because light is coming, that means representing 1 or representing switch on. Light is not coming, that means it is representing a binary 0, switch off. That means light will not come from that. So there also that flashing pattern of LED is representing a switching pattern, representing a binary pattern, and when that pattern is sensed by the TV sensor, the particular function is driven, like channel is changed or volume is increased, or some color context you want to change, that you can change. And for each button pressed on the TV, there is a different pattern of flashing of IR LED in the remote control. So that is also analogous, again I repeat, that is also analogous to that binary pattern, that is switch on and switch off instructions. And accordingly, the last quote that I made last day, that this way of interpreting the instruction set for so-called digital machines is called machine language. So machine language is the switching pattern. Machine language is the switching pattern. Accordingly, a digital machine is controlled. Accordingly, a specific function is driven on the digital machine. So up to this, I told last day, let me write this. Machine language. This is the interpretation of switching pattern in binary language as digital machines are the combination of billions of switches which are controlled to drive a particular function. Okay. So digital machine is there, with the help of switching pattern, it can be controlled. This is a fact. Now, for a device like computer, as computer is also a digital machine, from very beginning you are learning. Computer's microprocessor is a very complex digital circuitry. I think my voice is coming, but video is stopped. Due to network communication, this problem is there. So you have to wait for a while so that I can restart the system, and the same link will be resumed. Just wait. I'm pausing for 2-3 minutes. Yes. For a machine like computers, it is difficult to remember all the instruction sets which are given for the computers to drive a particular function, because computer is a complex device and thousands and millions of functions are driven in it internally. So it is difficult to remember all of them together. So computer scientists an easier process. The process is that language is prepared according to our understanding, and some translators prepared. Those translators can translate the code written in specific language to the machine language, so that when something is provided in machine language, the microprocessor can get those instruction sets and can work properly, can work accordingly. Now, Java is one of such language. When Java is a computer language, when some program is written in Java language, that has to be translated in machine language, then computer is able to interpret that, computer is able to work accordingly. Thus, our works are done. So recall last day I told that when you have to do a work, you need to write a method. A method has to be developed. Now the method is interpreted in a specific language. Suppose method is there in your mind, and you want your companion, your friend to get that work done, then you have to interpret your thinking. You have to say your thinking. You have to make your friend learn the method which is there in your mind. This learning is done by some language. I told you last day also that there is no connection from ear to ear, that from one ear you will insert a wire and you will put in your friend's ear then from mind to mind it will be transferred. This is not possible. You have to say, you have to interpret your feeling by some language, Hindi or English, whatever you are knowing or your friend is knowing, you will interpret. Now for computers, there is another language, Java, you are going to learn. You have to interpret your method in Java language. And there is one more one intermediate process, that Java is not directly interpreted by the computer, but Java or method written in Java again needs a kind of translation that has to be converted from Java language to another language for the computers that directly used by the computer system to get the work done, that is machine language. So this is the overall process. If you remember, for few students I taught in class 7 also, then in brief while discussing about basic language, I told you these things. So these things are always to keep in mind while working with the computers, that why you are doing this, why you are using Java compiler, or why what is compiler, or what is translator, what is machine language, what is its significance, that must be kept in mind before you work with Java program. So not only in Java program, but for programming. In fact, computer programming is simply a method development process. Computer programming is a method development process. Once the method is developed, any language you can use for its interpretation. Like last year you learned basic language, this year you are learning Java language. But let us say an example, that suppose you have to work for adding two numbers, then it is fact that first number has to be asked, second number has to be asked, and then counting process will be done according to the numbers asked, and then finally the result will be told. This is fact. Of this you will do this method, either you interpret in basic language or you interpret in Java language. In whatever the language you will interpret, that translator is required for that. That translator, like basic language translator, will translate basic language code into machine language, then computer will work accordingly. Java language, if you are writing, then Java language translator you need to use. Then Java language translator will take that code and will interpret that in machine language, then computer will work. So this is the overall process. Let me write this. Working in such language means I'm talking about machine language, is complex. So computer scientists developed some other languages in such a way that when a method for a work is written in this language, a translator is used to get that code converted into machine language. Something difficulty with writing, yes. Okay, so I told about the translator. Now, translator is of two kinds. One type of translator is called interpreter. Another type of translator is called compiler. Last year, if you have studied basic, not if you have studied basic. The last year you have studied basic. Now basic code is or basic language is interpreter based language. For a work, translator is used. This is of two kinds. First is called interpreter. This example I recall always to understand the working of interpreter. That suppose you get a work, suppose a problem you have got to solve. You are not knowing how to solve that problem. You went at your home, or some elder brother or father or mother, you have given that problem to them, ki I have got this problem to solve. How that can be done? Please tell me, I don't know. Then your helper takes you the problem, sees the problem. Okay, this problem you have got, yes, this can be solved. He or she solves the problem and gives to you. Being happy, you take that problem. Ha, ito solve ho gaya. Got given that solution to the person who gave this to your teacher. Teacher bhi khush ki ha bhai, you know you have solved this. Good. But again, when you will get that problem, again you will find your companion again. You have solved this problem again. I have got solve it. So again and again, whenever you will get such type of problem, you will search that person who solved that. You will take the solution and you will give. This is the work of interpreter. On the other hand, suppose you got the problem. You asked your elder, okay, bhai, I have got this problem, I need to solve that. Now, suppose your elder does not solve the problem, but he teaches you the method of solving the problem. Your companion, your elder gives you the method of solving that problem and tells go and solve it by yourself. Now tell me, when you will get that problem again, will you find your elder? Certainly not, because you are knowing the method. This is the work of compiler. Suppose our Prime Minister goes to China. He needs an interpreter to talk to Chinese people. Again and again, he wants to talk. He will need the interpreter. This is the work of interpreter, that he listens from you and translates in another language, listens to you and translates in another language. That person is also called interpreter, language translator. But if someone is knowing Chinese, then no need of interpreter. Once it will put the effort once only to learn Chinese language. Once the language is known, he can talk to Chinese people easily. So let me write that in language. It is a translator. It is a translator that takes before I write the definition of interpreter, let me write one more thing. This is of two kinds. One thing to necessary to write. The language, this approach of method interpretation or method expression is called high level language programming. Java is one of the high level language. And another one, basic 256, you have studied earlier. Before that, Logo you have studied. So they are high level languages. So about interpreter, it is to tell that it takes high level language program like Java program, checks or reads the program line by line for a particular line, and of course any method, anything is written or is read from top to down, first line to the last line. So suppose first line is read, it is checked whether it is correct or not. If the line is correct, then it is translated into machine language and given to the microprocessor for execution. Again, and in case if that line has some error, then immediately it prompts that syntax error or some other error is there in that, please correct it. Again goes to second line, checks for errors. If it is error free, converted into machine language and given to the a computer for execution. So interpreter reads the program, reads the method line by line. Computer language interpreter reads the method line by line. For a particular line, if it is error free, then it is translated into machine language and given to the computer for execution. If it is having error, then the execution of the task stops immediately and the error is prompted that this line has not been written correct. So that is why whenever you need to work with a method written in high level language, see, long words I am using, but to make you understand what I want to tell, when you have a method, I'm not using the word program. Again and again, I'm telling method, so that makes you to understand. In fact, program is a method written in computer language. So when you have a method written in computer language, written in a high level language, then interpreter takes that method line by line, and for a line by line from top to down, and for a particular line, if it is error free, if it is correctly written, the interpreter translates it and gives to the computer for execution. And if it is having error, then it is given or a message comes on the screen that this line is having error, corrected first, then further execution will continue. But one thing is that whenever you need to work with that high level language program, you need that interpreter sitting intermediate or working intermediate. Java is one of the high level language. Language translators are of two types. First is interpreter. It takes the method method written in high level language इसी को हम लोग कंप्यूटर प्रोग्राम कहते हैं. Takes the lines it is difficulty stops writing. Anyway, let us move to another translator, compiler. Compiler takes the whole program at a time. Compiler is also a high level language translator to machine language. Compiler takes the whole program at a time, checks the whole program for errors at a time, and wherever in whatever the lines there are errors, it prompts if it is error containing. Now if the code is error free, compiler translates the whole program into machine language and returns back to user. It doesn't give to a microprocessor. The compiler returns the translated code back to the user. So compiler is like a translator box. You put the high level language program into it. If the correct program is given, then the machine language translated code returns. Like coffee making machine, put the coffee ingredients in the machine and coffee comes out from it. So once you get the machine level language code, whenever you need, you can give that machine language level code to the computer and that will execute. Working in the same way like a person who teaches you the method of solving the problem. Once you get the idea of doing the work, whenever you need, you will do. So compiler works once for translation, and once the translation into machine language has been done, then whenever you need, you can execute that program. There is no need of translator again. So compiler is advantageous. Once the Java program is written, one time you have to use its compiler. Later on, that program is executed, that program is working without calling any Java interface. This part a little bit wrong I am telling, but for the time being I'm making it correct. Particularly wrong with Java, because Java needs something else also. Java is not a fully compiler based language. So when I will come specific to Java, I will discuss the difference of this. So this is the difference of compiler and interpreter. I think the time 45 minutes is over. So there is no communication way from the students, whether you want to continue onwards or not, I don't know. But through your teacher, if you will confirm, I can take the class of 1 hour also, or you can confirm, or you will leave this time limit with, because in the evening time your class is continued. So if you desire, I can continue for more time also, but today I am winding up. Today I told only about 2 things. Balki, you can tell I told about 3 things. The significance of high level language. In fact, what is high level language? That is the language which is easier for you to understand. Now, when code is written in high level language, it needs to be converted in machine language, as computer is understanding machine language only. So with each high level language, there is a language translator that converts high level language code to machine language. That translator is of 2 types. One is interpreter, another is compiler. Interpreter takes the high level language code line by line, checks it for errors. If it is error free, given to the computer for its execution. So whenever you need to execute that program, interpreter is required. On the other hand, compiler takes the whole program at a time, checks for errors, and if it is found error free, it is returned, it is translated into machine language and given back to the user. So these are the 2 way of working of compiler and interpreter. So on these things today only I focused. One thing I want to point out, that this page that I'm writing, I will send to your teacher will put in the group. That is another thing. But this is my request, that whatever you listen, make a write-up on the page. a summary. Class 7, those the students whom I taught, they are knowing in what way my methodology works. But for others, I am requesting that prepare a write-up for each class on the paper. Take the snapshot of the paper and send it to your teacher for verification. Once you write immediately, soon after the class, and parents are also maybe listening, then our parents are also requested to insist the students to write immediately what the students have learned, what your ward has learned. One paragraph, two paragraph, whatever you can recall, you write on the paper, take the snapshot from the mobile and send it to your concerned teachers so that and keep it in your record for learning, because whatever you have learned will remain in your mind for a couple of hours only. Later on you will forget. So it is a wise work to put your recording on the paper so that later on when you require, you can see it and learn it. So that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good night.